Hey everybody, welcome to the 25 Marketing Mastermind. We hope everybody's having a great day. We've got a fantastic hour for you today. Oh my goodness, I'm hearing myself again. I paused it, cool. You know how irritating it is hearing yourself speak? I don't like hearing myself speak. I don't know about you, but I can't stand it. I think I sound like a nimwit. But anyway, hope everyone's doing well today. I see we have Lori on the chat, and I'm just trying to see if we've got anybody else. I know that Robert will be here soon, and if Maria, you're on there, yeah, Maria's there. Cool. We're so glad that you're here. We have got a mind-bending subject today that's hopefully going to make yourself explode and rethink a lot of stuff because it's just fantastic, and I cannot wait to share it with you. And if you got my email, I spoke about the red pill versus the blue pill. And honestly, this is not some la-di-da, weird, wishy-washy stuff that, hardly works. This works 100%, and we're going to blow up your world today. So before we get into that, though, I want to go through everybody's week, introduce everybody on the panel, just so you know who is here with us. So we have Pops, reigning from the United States of what is it? The United States of, I keep forgetting. What is it? What is it? Where are you from?
United States of the world.
Okay, United States of the world. Okay, what do you mean? The Federation of Planets?
Can't we all just get along, right? Huh? Come on.
Cool. Yeah, let's get on. All right.
Let's get along.
Where you're in Florida right now, right?
We're in Florida, about 40 miles outside of Orlando, which we have in about 2 weeks an event at Ray Higdon event in just south of Orlando in Kissimmee, depending on where you're from. And so we're hanging out in the woods, and we're in a Panera Bread like we have been in the past because we need the internet and we don't have enough strong internet out in the woods for both of us to be on. So it works out well coming in here.
Nice. Nice.
Yes. We had great. Go ahead.
I was just saying, if you saw your tracks from the above, you would see your RV do weird kind of circles. Coming back to the same place every time you need to do a hangout. I mean,
Yeah. That's what the map looks like. Yeah. And we'll be out of Florida, though. We'll be leaving at the end of the month, heading west again. And we're looking forward to that because we do like to move, and we want to get on the move. Kind of stagnant, and we get impatient with that.
Nice. All right, cool.
It's been wonderful here, though. We'll be back.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. And I'm so glad you got a better internet connection than you had last week when you were doing your connection. Long as the one you have on with us is great, because I was thinking when you guys got on here, I was thinking, gee, I hope they have a good connection. Otherwise, we're going to have to do all the talking. And but I'm so glad you guys got a good connection. I'm so glad I have a good connection. Well, semi. I'm just wondering how long it's going to last for. With that being said, we have Mr. Jamie Shaw. Jamie, how's your week been? How you doing, buddy? You've just come back from work, as I understand it.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I had a pretty good weekend. Well, actually, I had a painful weekend trying to finish up my taxes. I got to finish them up tonight because they're due tomorrow. And the reason I'm taking so long is because I got to pay in. But I've got the amount down to about $800 right now. So, so when I got to pay, I wait till the last minute to file them. So. But, other than that, I'm still finishing up my blog, redesigning it. Got some technical issues on it. The text is blending in with the new background, so I got to go fix text colors and stuff like that. I didn't notice it until I tested it on mobile, and it looks like crap on mobile. So, that's part of being a web designer. You got to go back and tweak things and fix things that you thought looked good on desktop, but when you get on mobile, they don't look good. So, and Saturday we had our normal hangout, and I got to use a little bit of my coaching skills to help a fellow member, and I felt pretty good about it, and I hope she got some good advice from me on it. And I see her in the chat tonight. Hi, Maria. So I hope she took a little bit of advice and that I gave her and ran with it, and it did her some good. So it made me feel good that I was able to offer her some assistance. So
awesome. And now we have Ms. Katie Stage. And Katie, if you could just speak for a few minutes about your week and what's going on while I fix up something on my end.
Yep.
Thank you for
pointing no problem. Yep. Actually, it was Ricky who pointed that out, so we say thanks to Ricky and stuffs. But yeah, we see Ricky in the hangout, and Andrea, she showed up here too, so I want to say hi to you guys. So this week has been pretty interesting. It's Pops and I, we're from Minnesota, born and raised Minnesotans, and it was really interesting to look on my timeline this whole week. Like, oh my gosh, we need to go to the store. There's going to be like 30 inches of snow. We got to go get ourselves some supplies. And here I am, like in my tank top and shorts and just sweating my bum off. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy to be in such a different, it's not that far away, but it's like so different. It's like, there's like no snow here. I mean, we got a couple of storms, but you know what I mean? It's pretty interesting how different that is. So this is my first winter without snow. I don't know if anybody in the comments, if you want to say if you've ever seen snow, have you ever like not seen no snow, if you know what I mean? Like Ricky, I know you're from the northern states. Have you ever had a winter without snow? So it's just been a pretty interesting winter. So, but anyways, I don't know what else to say. I'm losing.
You said my link wasn't working. I've just tested it. It's working fine. Which
yeah, I guess well, apparently the one that you sent. Hold on 1 second. Now somebody else can talk while I go check.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just sending out a reminder right now. Just sending it out.
Okay, yeah, might as well just do that. Yeah.
All right, so I'm sending it out. Cool. All right, cool. So yeah, we got Joe Mack as well, along with Ricky and everybody who's on here. Welcome. My week has been kind of interesting. They say everything happens in threes, and it probably will because I'm saying it. But oh my gosh, let's see. So my brakes failed this week. My brakes needed to be fixed. My battery died on me, so I had to get that sorted out. And my alternator blew. So now my car, every time I run my car, I got to go ahead and charge my battery, run my car, come back and do that the whole time. But fortunately, I've sent it in to get it fixed. So I'm without a vehicle at the moment, and I'm just waiting for something else to break. But, that's just life.
What's the bad news?
What's the bad news? Well, on the plus side, I got a good connection right now, so I'm not complaining. And technically, whenever something bad happens, you got to laugh it off. There's nothing you can really do about it. But fortunately, because of the fact that I work from home and the fact that I run my own internet business from home, I have the freedom to do what I need to do, and that's just wonderful. So I also got to spend some time with my nieces and nephew because it was their birthday, and that was really cool. I got to say, there was kind of an awkward moment with my nieces when I was there. So the oldest one, I bought a little elephant, and she called this little stuffed element Eddie, and she loved Eddie, and Eddie was something that she had all the time. And while I was there, I had got her another little gift, and I got her this water bottle with a face on it. It was her favorite color and everything, and she told me she really appreciated it. And I said to her, do you still have Eddie? Because this was like 10 years ago. She's 10 now. And I could tell that there was a bit of a problem in the way that she was answering it, because she didn't want to answer, and she was trying to figure out how to say this to me. And her younger sister just blurted out, oh, she gave it away. She gave it away. And I think she felt really bad because of that. But I said, no, that's good. If you can pass it on to somebody else and they can have a great time with it, that's amazing. So I got another phone call when I got home from my niece, telling me how much she appreciated it. And it's just a really cool thing to be able to have that type of relationship with your nieces and nephew. And if you want to see pictures of them, they're on my Facebook wall. But I had a really great time. But other than that, I kind of have forgotten about the car thing since I brought that up. But now that I remind myself, gee, anyway. So we got an interesting topic to discuss with everybody today. And I'm not kidding you when I say that once you understand this particular subject, I honestly believe it's going to open up so many doors. When you hear this answer, you are going to be, oh my word, I cannot believe that I reacted this way. I cannot believe I never saw this. I cannot believe that I never took a step back to examine my life. And I do believe it's going to answer a lot of questions, and you are going to be able to make decisions in your life, in your relationships, in your financial difficulties, even in your political choices. I believe that this will affect every part of your life, but mainly in the online marketing industry, because I do believe you can apply this to that and you can excel big time. So what am I talking about? Well, to get started, I want to tell everybody something very important that I learned when I was about 10, or a bit older than that maybe. I was very proud of the fact that I actually came up with a solution, being as young as I was. So when I came home from a school, the last thing I wanted to do was homework. It was the last thing I hated school, still hate school. Never would go to a reunion if you paid me. I absolutely detested school growing up. But the one thing I detested more than anything was homework. And I remember when I got home and I was faced with this homework, thinking, do I want to do this? And my honest response was, not really. Oh man, I'm too tired. I need to go and lie down, or I need to do something else. And so in my mind, I would imagine that my dad would come home with a hi-fi, with a high fidelity system, like a stereo, because we never had computers back then. And I would imagine if my dad said, Dave, I got this hi-fi system, would you set it up for me? And in my own mind, I was so excited about that prospect that obviously I had energy. So I thought to myself, if I have the energy to fix the hi-fi that it wasn't there, I certainly have energy to do my homework that is there. And that's how I would change my my chemistry when I was that young. And my main point is this, that how we think and what we do can be changed by the way that we perceive things. All right. And this is your reality. This is your reality that you are faced with every single day. Now, if you guys have seen the movie The Matrix, let me know in the comments if you've seen The Matrix. Hey, Robert, I see you there. I knew you were joining. Joe Whistler, awesome to see you. If you've seen The Matrix, say yes. Just say yes in the comments. I want to know how many people have seen The Matrix. And The Matrix, for me, the first one was the best one, obviously. And I can quote lines and lines and lines from that movie because it was my favorite. I didn't like the other two. I liked the first one. It was great. I really enjoyed it. And if you remember that movie, Neo is faced with the choice of taking the red pill or taking the blue pill. And he ultimately takes the decision to have the red pill. And when he takes the red pill, he's taken down the rabbit hole and he realizes the reality that everybody actually lives in. And this is this big computer generated system that everybody's actually asleep and they need to be awoken, and they get unplugged and they get plugged in, and he gets plugged into the matrix. And that is his real reality. Now, I'm not far off that deep end. I don't actually believe that for a second, but I do believe that everybody on this planet lives in their own reality. their own reality of what is right and what is wrong, what is real and what is fake. All right. We are constantly living in this way of life. And what I want to talk about next might be a bit controversial, because if everybody here understands, I want to ask you this question, everybody on the comments. How rational do you think you are? On a scale of 1 to 10, how rational? 1 being super stupid and 10 being an absolute genius. How rational do you think you are? Let me ask that question. I'm just putting it out there. And while I'm putting it out there, maybe somebody here on the panel wants to chime in and say something.
I just put it in the comments that I'm very rational because I'm a woman. Duh.
So yeah, I was reminded of a great and amazing joke. Had nothing to do with your comment. Anyway, no, that's cool. Okay, 6 to 7, Joe says. By the way, that is one of my goals. 6 to 7, I hope.
I think Bob's talking about a hot tub, not a woman. I'm
okay. All right.
Something. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Goal I wanted to get one. Okay, cool. Yes, that's always a good goal. I shouldn't actually. Is that what you're saying? Okay, cool. I get the hint there, Bob. Good. All right. So rational. Ricky says he's an 8. Okay. Rational says he's an 8. And in all honesty, I would think I'm also quite rational, because quite honestly, I personally don't want people to think that I'm stupid. I'm certainly not stupid, but I want to put something forward to everybody here. All right. And I want to make a suggestion. This is my opinion. This is not hard, solid facts. This is not written in stone. This is my opinion. And there's a reason why it's my opinion. All right. And you need to listen carefully to this. Right. So I believe that most people are rational 10% of their time in their life. I believe that most people are actually rational 10% of the time. What do I mean by that? I mean, you set your alarm clock, you get up, you go to work, you come back, you eat, you do certain things at certain times, all right? That's what I mean by rational. But I also believe that we are irrational 90% of the time. Now, you might be thinking, Dave, that's a bit weird. That's a bit strange. Why would you say something like that? I want you to understand that when most guys buy a car, they are not buying the car because it's the most economic thing to do. They're buying the car because of the color. They're buying the car because of how it feels. They're buying the car because it's the most coolest. When I bought my cell phone, right, this amazing cell phone, I could exchange this for a vehicle if it was brand new. I could exchange it for another car. That's how expensive this phone is. It's really an expensive phone. I don't need to have an expensive phone. I can just get a cheapie and use it to make calls, because if I actually told you what I use this phone for, you'd be like, what the hell are you using it for then? Why? We are not rational human beings. 90% of our actions are based on irrationale. All right. Think of the people that we marry to. Might be a great match, you might have a great marriage, but ultimately, if you look at each other, you might think, gee, we're completely different people. We should not be able to connect like this. What is going on? All right. Here's an example I can think of. Maybe if somebody wants to think of an example on the panel, they can, but I often do this to play around with my friends. I don't do this to complete strangers because it's just plain rude. But sometimes, if you ever noticed, if you go up to a person and you say, hi, and they'll come back at you and say, I'm fine, thanks, and you? And you're like, what? Like, what are you? So to throw people off, if I say hi and they say, I'm fine, thanks, and you, I stop them and say, whoa, I didn't ask you how you were. If I did, I would have stopped and had a conversation with you. You're far too boring for me. So get on your way. I do that with my friends, obviously. I have a good time with it. But the point I'm making is that most of us do not operate in a rational manner. Okay, we don't. We just simply don't. We hear things and we assume they mean something else. We jump to the nearest conclusion. I was telling everybody on the panel here that when I was teaching Sunday school, I was playing a trick on everybody, and I said, I want you to turn to the book of Ezekiel in the Bible. And of course, there's no book in the Bible called Ezekiel. You might be thinking, no, there is. Let me go and check. Somebody's rushing to the Bible, but there isn't a book called Ezekiel. And I'm saying, go to chapter 2 and verse 1. And I'm expecting everybody to keep finding it. And somebody starts reading. And they're reading the book of Ezra, or the book of something, or some other book, but they're reading a book that sounds like Ezekiel. We're not rational beings. I even said, I want you to turn to the book of Imaginations. And people started looking for the book of Imaginations. These are rational beings, supposedly. We are not rational, all right? I want you to understand it from that premise. Now, you may disagree with me. You say, Dave, I think I'm the most rational person on the planet. I disagree, but that's my opinion. How many people have looked for the any key on their keyboard to start pressing any key, right? Oh, my goodness. I'm not saying we're that stupid. I'm just saying that if you go into this idea of what I'm talking about tonight, I need you to go into the idea that we are not rational most of the time. Now, what am I talking about? All right, you might be thinking, what am I talking about? Because when I tell you this, it's going to be a big word. It's going to be a word that maybe you haven't heard that often. And the word is called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. Now, you might be thinking, what the heck is cognitive dissonance? And you'll be right, because I didn't know what that word meant a while back, but I learned, and you might go and look it up on Wikipedia if you want to. But basically, the idea is that a person is faced with two bits of information. Could be right, it could be wrong, and you have no idea. You have no idea how to make a judgment. And the best way I can describe cognitive dissonance is this. You may know somebody who's in a relationship with somebody. Maybe you've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you know that partner is very bad for that other person. So you do everything in your power to convince that person that their partner is bad for them, because you've seen them cheat, or you've seen them do this, or you've seen them go against what their belief system is. You've seen them do horrible things. And you try and convince this person that their partner is bad for them, and they want nothing to do with it, because in their mind, they have made the best decision. They can't tell what is real and what is not real. And that is a state of cognitive dissonance. That is a state. Does everybody understand? Yes. Laurie, can you spell that? Can everybody understand?
I'm trying to spell it for her, if you don't mind. I'm trying.
I used to think it was cognitive dissidence, but it's cognitive dissonance.
Dissidence?
So if you understand, if you can understand what that means, can you just tell me yes if I've explained it correctly, so we understand what cognitive dissonance is? You know, it's a person who has been put, there are two bits of information coming forth at them, and they have no idea what is real and what is wrong. So they have no idea what is good for them or bad for them, because they're in a situation where they have a bias towards the other side. It's like a few years ago, before I was on the internet, I had a business partner who was an absolute troll, an absolute, he drained the life out of me. But I believed in him so much. I had my buddy Bruno warn me about him. I had my other buddy Elton warn me about him. But this guy was so bad for me in business, I couldn't see it. And I wanted to believe that he was going to do big things. And I just couldn't see it. And I was in a state of cognitive dissonance because I could not tell. Every time they would they would try and explain it to me, I would just write them off and say, you don't know what you're talking about, you idiot, or what the heck, man. I mean, I know this person, he's got diabetes, man. He's got problems. He's got you're not seeing it from his perspective. And that is the biggest problem that a lot of us find ourselves in. Now, I'm sure that everybody here can identify with what I'm saying. Can anybody on the panel give me an example of when that they were in a state of cognitive dissonance and they did not know? Because in hindsight, it's better. Go for it, Katie.
Okay, so I just wanted to let everybody know. I want to say hi to Pamela, by the way. Pamela Scott's here in the comments. Yeah! So I just wanted not to take away from what we're talking about, but just to build up to it, that today is my 5th year online. Today, April 16th, 2013, I started my online venture. But here's the thing. When I started my online venture, I started to learn all this new stuff and learning online marketing for the first time and learning all this stuff that I didn't even know. I didn't even know anything beyond checking my email. So as I was getting trained, they told me stuff like you don't have to recruit anybody, or you don't have to call anybody. All you got to do is, the blog daily, tell others, and get money, or something like that, wasn't it? So anyways, the whole point is that you don't have to be on three-way calls. You don't have to cold call anybody. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that, blah, blah, blah. So when I started to work into this business, and Pops was actually telling me that I should be calling people, I'm like, no, I'm not calling anybody. Are you crazy? Right? So that was where I was stuck. It was like, I was just told that I didn't have to, and all of a sudden Pops is telling me that I probably should. In the end, of course, like 98.5% of the time Pops is right, he was right again, right? So I know how important it is to call people. So not cold call, but to get on the phone with somebody who may not be a potential client, and if they're not, you just made a new friend. No big deal. So I appreciate you. Thank you for all the congrats in the comments. But the whole point is that was part of my deal, where Pops is like, you should be doing this way, and I'm like, no, I know it to be this way. So is that kind of where that's kind of like in line with cognitive dissonance?
Yes, it is, because you're convinced beyond a shadow that you don't need to call anybody. But what Pops is saying is, he's saying there is a way where you can actually connect, and you just refuse to listen to it. So you're in that state of cognitive dissonance where you're not taking that step. And another one with me is, and I was telling Pops and Katie this, that I have this thing about people just eating burger patties. All right, if we're making burgers and everybody is sitting at the table, I get so angry when somebody just grabs a burger patty and starts eating it. It makes me crazy. And we have an expression in Afrikaans which is mal. It makes me mal. It makes me, and Maria would understand, I'm sure. But it absolutely drives me. And the reason it drives me crazy is because when I was growing up, food was precious. Food was, you didn't waste food. You conserved it. You wouldn't just have it eating a patty, because you would have it with a bun, and then you would have two, and you wouldn't waste food. So when I see other people doing it that haven't had the same experience as me, it just goes beyond my thinking that anybody could waste food. And I just say it's just pure opulence. You're just eating because it's nice. It's just nummy, yummy, yummy, good. That's the only reason you're eating it. You're not eating it because of sustenance and the real reason why food is food. And that's an example of mine. Pops, can you think of something?
Yeah, I actually gave the same example before we got on. When I was growing up, we were to eat everything on our plate, and my folks really didn't want to save anything, and they also had, a budget. I wasn't raised in a rich family, and to this day, I still have some dissonance about not finishing food. And if there's this much left and I'm already full, I don't see any sense in trying to save that. And I'm certainly not going to throw it away because of my previous programming, if you will. So there's a conflict, and so I'll eat it, even though I may be uncomfortable, which doesn't make any damn sense at all. I can afford to buy more food, and even saving it for the next day, there isn't going to be enough to make a meal, so what's the point? However, in my mind, the way I was brought up, I can't put together the fact that, well, not always, but usually, sometimes I can't put together the fact that I can take this little morsel and put it together with another little morsel that I saved from a month ago. No, I'm kidding. I could put them together and make a meal, but my programming gets in the way. So I have a conflict, cognitive dissonance, so that really throws me for a loop sometimes, and I have sometimes a hard time letting go of that. It's unreasonable, but that's just the way we're built for the most part.
That's right, and I can completely relate to that. It's in so many facets of our life. Jamie, do you have something you can think of that perhaps in hindsight you could have seen something different?
I'm the IT guy, and you dropped this bomb on me about cognitive dissonance, and my head's spinning. So what do? I holler at my best friend, "Hey Google, what does this cognitive dissonance mean?" So I looked it up and I started reading while Dave's talking about it, and I'm listening to him, trying to read at the same time, and I hit this paragraph, and it struck me just right because I've had this happen to me, and it does create a dissonance. Just imagine, that. Sometime in your life, you've been offered a great job in a different part of the country. I was offered a job out in Colorado. I had the mountains, the streams, and the valleys, and this was back when I was early in my career. I had the mountains and the streams, and everything was beautiful out there. And, the point is, if I take the job, then I'm going to move away from my family. I'm going to miss all my loved ones. But if I turn it down, I'll be near my family and friends. So it creates a dissonance because you have to make a decision of whether it's beneficial to take the job and be away from your family or turn it down and be close to your family.
Yeah, and it all amounts to what you're emotionally more connected to. And sometimes we are emotionally connected to something that isn't good for us. It's the same with alcoholism, taking drugs, doing that sort of thing. We get hooked on things which we have such an emotional connection. And even if you're faced with actual evidence that it isn't good for you, you will still find a reason to justify, no, it's me, I'm an independent, I'm all good, and it's not your life, it's my life, don't tell me what to do. We find reasons to justify everything we do. But what I want to do right now is I want to go through some examples about life and how we use this. And then after that, I want to give everybody here a challenge. And the challenge is, while I'm going through these examples, I want to challenge everybody here to try and figure out a way that you can catch yourself in cognitive dissonance. Is there a way that you can catch yourself so that you prevent yourself from making that irrational decision? I want you to try and think of a way that you can actually do that. Don't even bother looking up online because you're not going to find it. All right? So try and think for yourself, all right? Think on your ace. So the first example is some people have this idea that life is unfair. Life is just unfair. No matter what happens, I'm always the one that has the bad end of the stick. Maybe I was born with a disability. Maybe I was born with things that never went right. I was born with the fact that I can't read properly. I can't write properly. I battle to read. And I have to keep reading every day to keep up my level of reading. Otherwise, I just sink back to level 2. If I don't read for a whole year, I'm back at level 1. If I read every single day, I can work up to 7. But if I stop reading, I'm back to 2 again. So I'm thinking, gee, life is just treating me unfairly. What the heck? And no matter what anybody says to me, I feel terrible. And some people cannot move out of that thinking. Another example is you might think that a job is the only way to live. a job, working a 9 to 5 is the only way that you are really going to have security, because you've been taught that your entire life. You know, it's been done for 100 years, so therefore it must be right. You know, we have big problems in South Africa because we have two tribes. One tribe values tradition and another tribe values education. What do you think is happening? Who do you think fights? The traditionalist tribe thinks we've been doing it for 100 years, so therefore we can't change. We need all our land back. So everybody's trying to grab the land in Africa. That's just what's happening all the time because it's been done. You know, that's why we should have the land. And the educated ones are thinking, no, wait a minute, things have changed. We live in a different economy. We have different struggles. We need to be able to feed the nation. And they think of it in a different level. And that's why we have big fights in this country. And I'm thinking, gee, you know, if you really wanted to be traditional about it, why don't you give the land to the Hottentots who owned the land before you did? But nobody wants to do that, right? Because it's an emotional connection. Another one would be, maybe you love the online business so much that the thought of working for somebody is just beyond you, right? You can't work for anybody. Even though you're struggling, the idea of actually you going out and earning a bit of income, maybe you need to go and you need to, I don't know, sell cookies door to door. You need to go and stand on, you know, go and work for McDonald's and do something part-time. Maybe the thought of doing that is just, there's no ways you can do that because you want to run your own online business. Katie, you want to say something?
I just thought about an example of putting this in a business filter when these are probably more than likely, actually it is, why objections do show up is because someone maybe had a negative experience in the business. So now they have all these excuses and these objections saying, okay, maybe it's not going to work, or I just don't, you know, they try to come up with any of these excuses. And can I just read something real quick about the cost and benefit analysis, Dave? Is that okay?
Sure.
I think this would help because this actually, I got this from learning cognitive dissonance in the past 2 days because I was like Dave Jamie. I was like brand new. But here's what I want to read is like the psychological process of cost benefit comparison helps the person to assess and justify the feasibility, as in spending money, of an economic decision, and it is based and is the basis for determining if the cost and to what extent. So it's basically if the cost outweighs the benefit, or vice versa. You know, you're gonna recognize out of somebody else whether it's a cognitive dissonance or maybe you haven't put enough value out there, possibly, where people have to justify. They do buy with the emotions and then they want to justify by it. But what Dave was saying is like to recognize it in ourselves. Sometimes there's an opportunity that shows up and then you have these objections of your own that pop up. And maybe you could stop yourself and say, okay, what is it that I'm really saying here? And why am I saying it? And what in the past has had me say it? Does that kind of go along with it?
Yes, absolutely. Remember what I said in the beginning, we are irrational 90% of the time. And it's very hard to find a person that will always make the right decision. We do this all the time, you know. That's why I'm saying you cannot be surprised when you make these decisions. If you come into the equation thinking I'm actually irrational, I need to start taking a step back. And this is the only context in which I will say that I'm stupid when it comes to a lot of things in my life because I need to make the right decisions. Now, getting back to what I said before about, oh yeah, one more example. Maybe you have a partner that's an idiot. Maybe you have a wife or a husband or a boyfriend or a girlfriend that's a moron. You think that they're what's wrong with them? All right, well, what is wrong with them? And you are incapable of thinking along their lines because you just have a belief system that they don't want to change. And, you know, it's just an example of where it holds you up in your life. Now, getting back to what I said, does anybody here, or maybe Katie saw the statement, does everybody here have a solution? What do you think you could do to recognize you are in a state to recognize that you are actually in the Matrix. I mean, if you think about the movie The Matrix, right? Neo, he didn't know that he was in the Matrix. He didn't know. So there's no ways for him to tell. And what actually had to happen is that Morpheus had to come out and reach out and grab him. And that's a clue. And this is where I believe that knowledge is power. It can change your perception on everything. And so I just wanted to ask anybody here if they know what the tell is, except for Ricky, because I know he knows. Ricky, if you're watching, I know you know. But anybody else here, can you tell me, what do you think is something you could do to recognize that you are in a state of dissonance?
Wait for it.
Wait for it. Type away. Type him like Typerson. I want to see if somebody's got an idea. How could you tell?
Well, Bob was actually saying is that cognitive dissonance causes hesitation on taking action. It can also be a normal response to situations that you either don't know anything about or make you feel uncomfortable. So there's that. What he's saying is what I'm thinking. He's saying is that there's that hesitation where, okay, why am I hesitating on this? Maybe you are in cognitive dissonance. Is that?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I think, okay, so I would say that Robert is quite close.
I'll give you guys an example.
Ricky playing a hush hush. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pops.
Go for it, Pops.
Got an example of when I experienced cognitive dissonance. And when I said this many times on here and on our Saturday workshop, that when I was trying to do videos, I think in my head, hell yeah, I can do videos. That's not a big deal. And then I hit play or record, and all of a sudden or if I do put something out there, it's very choppy and just, I wouldn't put it out. I'd erase it entirely and maybe try again. But it's something, and I found out when I was younger, it affected me, but I was really uncomfortable in front of that camera. I could speak in front of people, fine, a group of people, but in front of the camera was just, I don't know. And then I realized it was speaking to people that I didn't know or couldn't see is kind of what really kind of generated that, putting myself way out into the world, not just this group of people, what I can kind of control. So I didn't have any control over where my video would go and being judged. So it was a lot of uncomfortable experience with that. And that kind of stopped me until I was able to work it out, which I finally did. But it took a little time. That was my experience, or one of many of my experiences.
Yeah, there are literally plenty of, I mean, when you think about this in your own life, you can come up with so many ways where in hindsight, you could say, gee, I wish, now that I'm thinking about it, I was completely wrong. I wish I had listened to people, but your emotion holds you back. And so we have to be confident with what we are doing, Shamala. Well, the thing is, when you see people that are in this state of cognitive dissonance, they are always confident. They are always confident that they are right. It's the biggest example I can give is the political arena. In the election, you had Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. You had Donald Trump supporters and Hillary Clinton supporters. And everybody that supported Hillary Clinton just supported her, maybe because she was a woman or because she had a lot of experience or whatever the case was, and they just stuck with that candidate. And then you had Donald Trump, and they are confident in their decisions that they are right. Now, I'm going to give you the answer with you right now. And believe me, when I say it, your brain is going to open. Your brain is going to open. I'm telling you now, your brain is going to go, what the heck just happened? Okay, because it's going to be a hard pill to swallow. And this is when I'm going to invite you to swallow the red pill. It's going to be a big suppository type pill to swallow. It's going to be massive, okay? And I want you to listen carefully, because it's just like brainwashing and understanding when somebody says a certain key phrase and they go, oh, okay. All right, so here we go. The way that you recognize that you are in a state of cognitive dissonance is this. If somebody comes to you with an alternative, or with a reason why you are wrong, or a reason why you are not in the right path, and your response is, "Oh, don't be crazy! You're such an idiot." Oh, fine. I mean, what you do is you mock them in a mocking phrase. LOL. Wow, dude, seriously? Are you absolutely insane? And then you follow it by an absurd exaggeration or a personal insult. So I'll give you an example. I used to be quite the sound guy back in the day. I used to love doing the sound. And I remember somebody coming up to me and say, I've had sound experience. Could I please do what you do? And I didn't want to give up that power. I didn't want to give up that power of being the guy that controlled the sound in the church. And so I kind of shrugged them off. And then somebody came up to me and said, what do you think about so-and-so? And I was like, oh, okay, fine. I just won't do it. Okay, fine. Fine. He can do the whole thing. I don't care. Oh, well, wow. I mean, you're just going to have somebody else come in and do the sound. I gave a response that was completely illogical, absurd, and outrageous, and just over the top aggressive, personally insulting somebody else. When you catch yourself in that position of coming up with an outrageous excuse as to why the other person is wrong, that's when you're in that state. That is when you are in that state. And I'm telling you, it absolutely changes the way that you look at the world. Because, I mean, you look at someone like Pops, and he kind of, in my experience at least, he kind of can skip over that very easy, because I think he's had a lot of experience in this, where he can go to reason very easily. And a lot of people can't. And that just comes with maturity. But the truth is, once you realize that you are in that state, it's like realizing you're an alcoholic, and you got to realize that you have a problem. Once you actually realize that you are reacting that way, that's when you say to yourself, let's take a step back and let me go and look at the evidence for myself. And that's why I always encourage people in my team to listen to people you don't like, to listen to the opposing sides, so that you can make an informed decision. And it's not to say that the person coming at you is wrong or right. It's about you not reacting in a way that's going to shut off somebody. Had I listened to my buddies about that business partner of mine, instead of saying, "Oh, you're crazy," he's, how can you say that about them? I mean, you don't know what you're talking about. Had I just said, "Okay, can you give me some examples of where you've seen this happen? What's he actually said to you? Show me evidence." Had I actually done that, I think I would have saved myself a lot of hurt and pain. And this is why I tell people that, when we are presenting you with an offer, like starting a business online, don't write it off and say, "Oh, it's just a scam." Because the moment you say, "Oh, it's just a scam," you've put yourself into that dissonance place. The moment you say, "Oh, it's just a scam," I'm telling you now that 99% of people don't know what they are talking about. 100%. They don't know what they're talking about. But instead of saying, "Oh, it's just a scam," they say, "Okay, you know what? Let me look into this." And they go ahead and they click on the link below the video right now that says "Get Started Now." They go and click on it. They go and look at the page, and the page says, right, we're going to give you a $10 trial. It's 10 days for $10. It's like $1 a day. Okay, cool. Let's go and look into that. They get into that. They sign up. They go and they look at all the training. There's like 42 modules of training. They go and look at the 6 steps to get their business set up. They go and invest time in it. Now that they've done the research, they have the information to make an informed decision. Because now they can't turn at you and say, oh, there's no training. Oh, there's no support. Oh, there's no help. Because once you get into the program, you'll understand that you're part of a huge community. You're part of an amazing group of people who want to help you. And I don't want you to be stuck in the matrix. I want you to take the red pill. And I want you to realize that you might be saying, oh, fine, I just won't do it. Or fine, get somebody else to do it. Or fine, I won't even talk to you. Oh, fine, you're crazy, it's a scam. Remember, when you catch yourself doing a mocking phrase and an absurd absolute or a personal attack or something that's aggressively over the top, you are in that state. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that a wow moment for people watching this right now? Because it was for me. Maybe it wasn't for you. Maybe you already knew this. Anybody else on the panel wants to say something?
Yeah, I want to, there's so many variations of cognitive dissonance, but in my opinion and what I've experienced, it'll usually create a situation where it's almost easier to change the belief about something than it is to change a behavior, because our behaviors were in a comfortable state. And to create a new belief becomes uncomfortable. Even though it's something good for you or good for your future and the old behavior is no longer serves you, sometimes it's difficult to get out of that. So you need to ask some questions of yourself as to why this is happening, where it's coming from, and try to work it out. And it's possible and it's very doable to work it out. And how we choose to resolve the dissonance and the discomfort that comes with it, because you'll definitely be uncomfortable. Whether you're reacting verbally to someone, that's still, you're going to be discomfort. You're going to experience discomfort. And how you react to it is healthy. If you can react to it healthy, being healthy would be to look at yourself and right response, or where this discomfort comes from, and it can be changed. It can be fixed, and repetition isn't necessarily always going to do it, but a lot of it can be changed, and it's definitely possible. Even though more cognitive dissonance will come along, we're going to have this for the rest of our lives because it's natural. It's a natural process we have to go through, but it's a good, healthy state to question it and figure it out for yourself if you can.
I love that. And this is why, as Pops was saying, your another sign is probably feeling uncomfortable. When you feel uncomfortable, you need to take a step back. You need to start thinking, perhaps I could be wrong. This is why you need to start off with the premise that we are irrational. If you think yourself rational all the time, nobody wants to admit that they made a mistake. Nobody wants to admit they made a mistake. It's like when you, if you have a certain belief system and you do things a certain way, the moment you are in a state where you do something against your whole belief system, you justify it by some silly action that you've made. We don't live up to our own actions. We don't. And when we do stumble, we create excuses for ourselves. Oh, I wasn't really awake. I never had my coffee yet. And that's why we don't like admitting that. And that's why I think it's healthy to have a good, it's healthy to have a good, healthy view of yourself, that we are people who do make mistakes, and we are people who need to be corrected. And very often, I'll be talking to Katie and Pops about something, and Jamie, and I'll find myself needing to correct the way that I think, because it's a possibility that I could be wrong. And admitting that is a big thing. But the more you do it, the more you start thinking like that, the better habits start enforcing the way that you think. And this is why I have so much admiration for people like Pops and Jamie and Katie and Pat Patterson, believe it or not, because you may think that Pat is a hardline guy and he doesn't change his mind, but he listens. He listens. And if you are right, he just wants to hear your reasons. He may not agree with you, but at least he listens. And that is such a key, thing to have, to admit that you could be wrong. And then perhaps find out that you weren't wrong in the first place. You know, maybe a week or a month later. It's a learning experience. This is why you need to drop your pride at the door and take a step forward. So I hope that this has helped. I hope that this has helped everybody watching. The key thing I want you to take away from this is that you need to understand that you are irrational. Okay, my opinion. You need to understand that we are constantly in a state of dissonance. And you need to understand that you need to recognize the triggers. And once you recognize the triggers, I believe your whole world can change. And this is where maturity comes in. And I honestly believe that if you can try and catch yourself during the next week, try and see if you can catch yourself doing the trigger by calling somebody else crazy, or that's absurd, or there's no way that'll ever work. See if you can catch yourself. It's very easy to catch somebody else. It's very easy to catch somebody else. I'm not talking about somebody else because this is about you. But try and see if you can catch yourself in a state of dissonance by writing off somebody so quickly, insulting them, being absurd, being an absolute. And, you know, here's a silly example. I've said this already to the panel, but if you made if somebody were to make an argument for gun ownership and you believe that the Second Amendment in America is great and everybody should own a gun, and you don't agree with that, a good example of somebody in a state of cognitive dissonance would say something like, oh, okay, so I suppose you expect toddlers to own guns, right? That's a complete exaggeration and way off track. And very often when you're in a conversation with somebody and they give you those outrageous examples, it just shows how strong your argument is, because you are being reasonable in the argument. And so hopefully that helps. We're actually coming to the end of this hour. Anybody on the panel want to say any last words before we go? Don't forget, we've got a whole bunch of hangouts that happen during the week. All right, we've got hangouts on Tuesday with Sonia and Maria at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard. Or was that 10%? 10, is that 10 p.m.?
4 p.m. Eastern. You don't second guess yourself there.
Sorry.
4 p.m. Eastern time.
All right, and then we've got one with Katie and Pops at 8 p.m. 7%. What is it? What is it? No.
All right, so let me just handle this real
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm wrong.
Let me just go ahead. No, it's okay. So I just wanted to kind of close on a closing thought real quick before we do the Hangouts thing, because I think it would be a really cool idea for this week for everybody to actually take a look, like what Dana is saying, see the objections that you have for yourself, and you can, in a business sense, turn that into a business filter and see what kind of objections you have out on the marketplace, and then turn those objections into an understanding and how you can turn that into a solution to try to sway people to make better decisions in your copy, in your videos, and all that other stuff. So just always do that. But our Hangouts is tomorrow is Sonia and Maria at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, me and Pops 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Ricky at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesday is Wisdom Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Thursday is Jamie and Wonderwit at Thriving Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we start all over after the workshop on Saturday. Is Monday, you're coming right back here to hang out with us at 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hey, one other thing, folks. Remember, when you get it right, when you change your dissonance or fix it, reward yourself. Make sure you give yourself some kind of a reward, because that's important to treat yourself well. All right? Have a great week.
Thank you so much, Pops. And that is important. Don't forget to reward yourself. I agree with that 100%. You guys have a great time. We will see you same time next week. We will be here strong and live. You have an awesome evening. Bye-bye.